Welcome, dear listeners, to History with Herodotus, where we embark on a journey through the vast expanse of human experience, exploring the intricacies of our collective past. Today, we find ourselves in the midst of a fascinating and complex tale, one that has shaped the destiny of nations and left an indelible mark on the annals of history, the Boer Wars. As we delve into this captivating narrative, let us begin by setting the stage for the events that would unfold in the late 19th century. The Boer Wars, a series of conflicts that pitted the Dutch-speaking Boers against the British Empire, were not merely a sudden eruption of violence, but rather the culmination of centuries of history, marked by the ebb and flow of empires, the pursuit of freedom, and the unyielding quest for self-determination. To grasp the origins of this conflict, we must transport ourselves to the sun-kissed plains of South Africa, where the Dutch East India Company first established a foothold in 1652. The company's outpost, nestled at the foot of Table Mountain, would eventually give rise to a thriving community of Boers, who cultivated the land, raised livestock, and developed a unique culture shaped by their Calvinist faith and African surroundings. As we wander through the rolling hills and vast savannas of the Cape Colony, we find the Boers living in relative isolation, their lives dictated by the rhythms of nature and the demands of farming. As the 18th century unfolded, the Boers began to expand their territory, migrating eastward beyond the Cape Colony's borders, and establishing themselves as a distinct people with their own language, customs, and traditions. This great trek, as it came to be known, was led by charismatic figures such as Piet Retief, who played a pivotal role in shaping the Boers' destiny. The trekkers, as they were called, faced numerous challenges, including conflicts with indigenous tribes, harsh weather conditions, and the ever-present threat of wild animals. The British, meanwhile, had been expanding their own empire, and by the mid-19th century, they had established a significant presence in South Africa. The discovery of diamonds in 1867 and gold in 1886 drew thousands of British prospectors to the region, leading to increased tensions between the Boers and the British. The Boers, who had grown accustomed to their independence, began to feel threatened by the influx of outsiders, and their desire for self-governance became increasingly pronounced. Key figures such as Andries Pretorius, a skilled military leader, emerged during this period, advocating for Boer rights and autonomy. The British, however, were determined to assert their authority over the region, and in 1877 they annexed the South African Republic, leading to the First Boer Wars. This conflict marked a significant escalation of hostilities, as the Boers, led by figures such as Marthinus Wessel Pretorius, resisted British attempts to impose their rule. The war would ultimately lead to the signing of the Pretoria Convention in 1880, which granted the South African Republic a measure of autonomy, but also sowed the seeds for future conflict. As we conclude our exploration of the earliest history of the Boer Wars, we stand at the threshold of a new era, one marked by escalating tensions, political intrigue, and the specter of violence. The stage is set for a drama that will unfold with devastating consequences, as the Boers and the British engage in a struggle that will test the mettle of both nations. The winds of change are blowing across the South African landscape, carrying with them the whispers of rebellion, the rumble of artillery, and the faint scent of smoke from distant battlefields. Join me next, dear listeners, as we enter the pivotal period of the Boer Wars. Welcome back, dear listeners, to History with Herodotus, as we continue our journey through the tumultuous landscape of the Boer Wars. As we enter this critical phase of the Boer Wars, the year's 1899, and the world is holding its breath. The discovery of gold in the Witwatersrand region has drawn thousands of British prospectors to the area, leading to increased tensions between the Boers and the British. The Boers, who had grown accustomed to their independence, feel threatened by the influx of outsiders, and their desire for self-governance becomes increasingly pronounced. Key figures such as Paul Kruger, the president of the South African Republic, emerged during this period, advocating for Boer rights and autonomy. Kruger, a stalwart leader with a strong sense of justice, plays a pivotal role in shaping the Boers' destiny. He is joined by other notable figures, including Louis Botha, a skilled military leader, and Jan Smuts, a brilliant strategist. The British, however, are determined to assert their authority over the region. They are led by figures such as Sir Alfred Milner, the High Commissioner for South Africa, who is resolute in his determination to bring the Boer territories under British control. The stage is set for a conflict that will test the mettle of both nations. The Second Boer War breaks out in October 1899, and it is a brutal and devastating conflict. The Boers, with their knowledge of the terrain and their skilled guerrilla tactics, prove to be formidable opponents. They launch a series of surprise attacks on British forces, including the sieges of Ladysmith, Mafeking, and Kimberley. The British, however, are not easily deterred. They respond with force, using their superior numbers and firepower to devastating effect. The war becomes a grinding, brutal conflict, with both sides committing atrocities and suffering heavy losses. The Boers employ tactics such as hit-and-run attacks, sabotage and raids on British supply lines, while the British respond with scorched-earth policies, burning Boer farms and crops and interning Boer civilians in concentration camps. One of the most significant events of the war is the Battle of Spienkop, fought in January 1900. This brutal and bloody battle sees both sides suffer heavy losses, but ultimately, the British emerge victorious. The Boers, however, continue to fight on, using their guerrilla tactics to harass and demoralize the British. As the war drags on, the international community begins to take notice. The United States, Germany, and other European powers express concern over the conflict, and there are calls for a negotiated settlement. However, the British are resolute in their determination to crush the Boer resistance, and they continue to pour troops and resources into the war effort. The war finally comes to an end on May 31, 1902, with the signing of the Treaty of Vereeniging. The Boers are forced to surrender, and their territories are annexed by the British. The war has been devastating, with tens of thousands of lives lost and widespread destruction. However, it also marks a turning point in the history of South Africa, as the country begins to move towards a more unified and independent future. The fate of empires hangs in the balance, and the course of history is forever altered. Join me next, dear listeners, as we explore the lasting legacy of the Boer Wars and their impact on the modern world. Welcome back, dear listeners, to History with Herodotus, as we conclude our journey through the Boer Wars. The Treaty of Vereeniging, signed on May 31, 1902, marked the end of the Second Boer War, but it also set the stage for a new era of British dominance in South Africa. The treaty established British control over the former Boer territories, and it paved the way for the creation of the Union of South Africa in 1910. This union brought together the four British colonies of Cape Colony, Natal, Orange River Colony, and Transvaal under a single government. However, the legacy of the Boer Wars extended far beyond the borders of South Africa. The conflict marked a significant turning point in the history of the British Empire, as it highlighted the growing tensions between imperial powers and the rising nationalist movements around the world. The war also had a profound impact on the development of modern warfare, as it introduced new tactics and technologies that would shape the course of future conflicts. One of the most significant consequences of the Boer Wars was the introduction of concentration camps, which were used by the British to intern Boer civilians. This brutal tactic, designed to break the will of the Boer resistance, resulted in the deaths of tens of thousands of people, mostly women and children. The use of concentration camps during the Boer Wars set a disturbing precedent for future conflicts, including World War I and II. The Boer Wars also had a profound impact on the development of South African society. The conflict led to the displacement of thousands of people, both black and white, and it created deep-seated divisions that would take decades to heal. The war also marked the beginning of a long period of racial segregation in South Africa, as the British government introduced laws and policies designed to restrict the rights of black Africans. In the years following the Boer Wars, South Africa became a major player on the world stage, with its rich natural resources and strategic location making it an important hub for international trade and commerce. However, the country's history was also marked by ongoing struggles for equality and justice, as black Africans fought against the oppressive apartheid regime that had been established by the British. Today, South Africa is a vibrant democracy with a diverse population and a thriving economy. The legacy of the Boer Wars continues to shape the country's identity, but it also serves as a reminder of the importance of reconciliation and forgiveness. As we reflect on this pivotal period in history, we are reminded that the consequences of conflict can be far-reaching and devastating, but they can also provide opportunities for growth, healing, and transformation. As we conclude our journey through the Boer Wars, I'd like to leave you with a quote from Nelson Mandela, who played a key role in shaping South Africa's future. "The truth is that we are all human beings, and we all make mistakes," he said. "But it is how we learn from those mistakes that matters." The Boer Wars may be a distant memory, but their legacy continues to teach us valuable lessons about the importance of compassion, empathy, and understanding. Thank you for joining me on this journey through history with Herodotus. I hope that our exploration of the Boer Wars has provided you with a deeper understanding of this complex and fascinating period in history. Until next time, goodbye. That's all for today's History with Herodotus. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, remember that to understand the present, we must first understand the past.